What is going on, guys? This is Daniel, and recently I've been impressed with the way the Wizards are cutting and moving without the ball. Since John Wall's injury, the Wizards are 14-8 with the 7th ranked offense during that time period, and in this video I'll be talking about how they move and cut, focusing mostly on the pick and roll and some of the concepts they use in the pick and roll to create buckets and spacing. So let's get to it. Let's start off with the pick and roll type called angle, and this consists of a pick and roll that occurs in the upper wing area. And the spacing of it is pretty precise. So you have a player on the opposite wing and the opposite corner, while there is someone in the strong side corner that's soon to be the weak side. So here you see Tim Frazier is allowed to get to the middle and he kicks it out to Mike Scott for a 3. The most common movement you'll see during this type of pick and roll is the lift, and you see Porter execute that here. As Beal comes off the pick and roll, Porter lifts from the corner to the wing, and this puts a lot of pressure on his defender. That defender has to make a decision whether he wants to tag the roll man or not, and with the two going in opposite directions, it's a tough call. Here he sticks with Porter, which frees up Mahinmi on the roll. Every team utilizes the lift, but a cut the Wizards use more than most other teams is from the wing. And you see here Taj Gibson is looking at the ball a bit, so Morris on that wing decides to cut to the basket as the pick and roll is occurring, and here Gibson falls asleep and it's a dunk. This time, notice how Gibson is really trying to close the gap. His feet are around the foul line and he's trying to cut off middle penetration from Satoransky, but this plays into Morris's hands here as when he cuts he's able to get behind Gibson. It can also be utilized if the defense ices the pick and roll, which is what happens here, as Wiggins keeps Beal on the sideline, not allowing him to get middle. But on the wing, Satoransky is still able to cut. This is also known as the 45 cut, and he gets the pass here and gets fouled. Now the cut is definitely not required, and here you see Justice Winslow helps one pass away, closing the gap, and Oubre could cut, but he decides to not, and he's still able to get off a good look from 3. The Wizards also move and cut well during empty, which is a term I'm using to describe a side pick and roll toward the middle where that corner is now empty. And you see the alignment for the Wizards on this play consists of a wing and the corner on the opposite side and now a player on the block, and the Wizards score here. So to be clear, this pick and roll happens where there are now 3 players on the opposite side of the pick and roll. And you may be thinking, with a big man near that block, doesn't that crowd the spacing? Well, yes, that defender who's guarding the big man can help. But from what I've seen during side middle pick and rolls, that defender isn't as much of a detriment as you would think. For one, Mike Scott here, who's in that short corner area, could cut inside, and this would be a layup if that defender helped too much. Also, Mike Scott could go to the 3-point line, and it's hard to predict from the defensive perspective where Scott will be, so it's tough to coordinate the rotations, and here while Scott is inside the 3-point line, Beal gets a layup. So sometimes they'll have a player on the block, and sometimes during the side middle pick and roll, there will be 3 players spaced along the 3-point line to start, as you see here. Now let's get to the off-ball movement, and like with angle, the underlying principle with the movement is to make sure Satoransky here can turn the corner. So Johnson is in the gap, ready to help one pass away if he can, and one thing the Wizards will do is execute a weak side exchange, which is what happens here. Porter initiates it by going to the corner as Beal comes up to the wing, and now Johnson has to follow Porter and he's not in position to stunt at the ball, and this allows Satoransky to get a piece of the paint. Again, here's a weak side exchange which occupies the defenders and frees up the middle for Beal to hit that shot. With an empty pick and roll, you'll also see that first guy on the wing cut as well, which is what Porter does here, and it leads to a 3. Let's watch this play again, and first, with all of the empty pick and rolls, the screen is set to the outside of the lane line. This allows proper spacing for Beal to turn the corner and get to the middle. Also on this play, what you'll see is after Porter cuts, Morris comes from the corner to the wing, and Satoransky comes from the block to the corner. This is good stuff, and you'll see at the end of this play, Porter actually sets a screen on Morris's man, pinning in, and this is what allows Morris to get open. Great off-ball movement. This happens again here, and this time it's Satoransky who cuts from the wing, and he ends up pinning in for Morris, who's coming up to the wing, and it's an open three. And it doesn't just have to be the first player along the perimeter to cut. Here it's Porter, and by him cutting, it allows Satoransky to move along the top, and this gives enough spacing so when Dragic helps one pass away, Satoransky has enough space to drain it. This time it's Morris who cuts, and he sets a pin-in screen on Teague, which frees up Satoransky for the three. And there's room to be creative and a bit unpredictable with the movement, and here neither Beal or Porter cut. Instead, Porter goes straight into setting a pin-in screen for Beal in what resembles a flare screen, and Beal hits the three. Here's an example of where a cut definitely should have been made. So on the empty pick and roll, you see Tyus Jones is getting in position to close the gap, and Sessions, being a mediocre shooter, should cut, but he doesn't, and Oubre turns it over. Moving on to something separate, what seems to be a rule in the Wizards offense, which is a cut through on a ball reversal when there are two perimeter players on that side. So this is what I mean. You have the ball reversal to Scott, and because there are two perimeter players on that side, Oubre cuts through while Satoransky, who's in the corner, comes up for the dribble handoff. This is good action, and they get a switch here. Scott posts up, and Satoransky gets the tip in. In the flow of their offense with the ball reversal, you have a nice hard cut by Sessions, and here when Oubre fills up, he's able to get a three right off of that. The reason I like this is not because of all the great shots it creates, but because it cultivates team basketball. And here you see Bradley Beal in the flow of the offense happily cuts through, and that's the type of team basketball that has really gone on during this nice stretch. Let's give the centers some love, and they do a nice job of coming to the ball. So on this play, you'll see that Towns helps on a cut, and Mahimi, instead of just standing on the other side of the court, makes a good effort to flash to the middle of the paint, and he scores. This is a good read from Gortat. The Cavs double the post, and Gortat knows it's George Hill's job to take away that pass. So Gortat flashes to the middle and then immediately looks to swing the ball along, though here, good rotational defense by the Cavs. And here's a couple more instances of this occurring. Nice flash to the ball there by Mahimi. And this time, a good job by Gortat on the empty pick and roll to duck into the middle when he sees the chance. Well, there you have it, guys. I hope this video not only gave insight to the Wizards, but how it's important to have proper spacing and cutting. Also, I think the Wizards are a bit of a sleeper in the East. If Wall can mesh with this team, they're a better team than last year, so keep an eye on them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.